What is this thing called love? This funny thing called love? Cole Porter singing his classic song from the show Wake Up and Dream. This is the digital age, and I'm Jim Zirin. And tonight, our subject is, what is this thing called Twitter? Is it an email, or is it a blog? Or as Porter might have said, is it the real turtle soup, or only the mock? Here to discuss this issue with us is the magician, the musician, New York Times technical columnist, David Pogue. David is the author of the best-selling book, the hilarious The World According to Twitter, which really is a must-read for anyone interested in this new technology. David, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Now, first, for the uninitiated, can you tell us, how does Twitter work? I mean, what are the ground rules? I know you've written Pogue's ground rules for Twitter, so if anyone can tell us, you can.
I can definitely tell you. Twitter is a free service, started, I guess, a year and a half ago, in which you are permitted to send short, 140 character long updates about your life. Exactly like a text message on a cell phone, except that instead of sending it just to one person, you are sending that message to whoever has signed up to receive yours on their cell phones and computers. So it could be your 5 friends back home in your hometown, or it could be, you know, if you're Ashton Kutcher or some movie star, it could be 2.5 million people who just like finding out what goes through the head of a movie star. So it's not like anything that came before. It takes some getting used to. It's not for everybody, but tens of millions of people are on it, and it has sort of changed the rules.
Why is it different from a chat room or a blog?
Good question. So it's different from a chat room because you control who's there. So you control whose articulate or funny or interesting utterances you want to receive. And if at any time you don't care for them or you're not interested in them, you turn them off and you don't get that person's remarks anymore. Unlike email, it's real time and instantaneous. And also, hardly anyone talks about this, unlike email, Twitter has no expectations that you're going to answer right away. I mean, I personally get busy sometimes, and I don't do Twitter for days at a time, and then I'll dip in and see what kind of flow of comments has been rolling by, and I might answer a few, but people aren't offended if I don't respond.
Now, is it tough to get a decent message out in 140 characters?
No, I think most people would say that that length limit is actually inspiring. It enforces you to be concise and witty and pithy. Some people overflow. It takes them three tweets to get the message out. But in general, these are observations, these are experiences, these are links to other things on the web that people think you'd like to see. News items, this is one of the things that have made Twitter so famous so fast, is there have been breaking news stories. The plane landing in the Hudson, for example, was tweeted by a guy who took a picture of it with his cell phone before any news organization even knew that the thing had crashed into the river.
Now, a tweet is a response to a question in every case, which is now what's happening. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, I think Twitter Inc. is doing themselves a disservice. The little box where you type your little updates is labeled, "What are you doing?" And it's a terrible prompt, because what it leads dismissers of Twitter to say is, "Why do I care what you had for lunch?" If I hear that one more time, "Why do I care what you had for lunch?" You don't. That's not what it's for. If somebody is giving you banal, boring, mundane stuff like that, unfollow them. Follow the interesting, funny people. So it's not what are you doing. It's what are you thinking? What have you seen? What's made you laugh? What news is breaking? What special offers are going to expire in the next 15 minutes? It's a whole bunch of, it's like this global cocktail party conversation. You can dip in and dip out at any time. No one will be offended. You're rated solely on how funny and interesting you are, and you can eliminate people from the party at any time. That's Twitter.
Now, they changed the question, I think, recently from what are you doing to what's happening.
Oh, what's happening?
Yeah,
Do they?
Now, what's happening?
Okay.
So do you think that meets your point better, or do you say what's happening, I'm eating lunch?
I do, maybe. Yeah, let's hope not. I think that's wise. I think what's happening is much better, much better.
Now, in February of 2009, when you first confronted Twitter, you said in the New York Times, quote, like the world needs another ego-massaging social networking time drain.
I did say that.
Now, that was your answer. Now, have you changed your mind?
I was slow to appreciate the virtues of Twitter, as many people are. And you really, it's very confusing, for one thing. People use shorthand and codes that you don't know what they mean at the beginning. But I stand by that in some ways. It still is a time drain. It still is an ego-massaging social media time drain. Like anything, you know what drives me crazy? In that same article, I mentioned that what drove me crazy is all the websites that go into the rules for Twitter. So don't send out more than 5 a day, but send out more than 3 a day, or people will lose interest. Like what? Don't promote your business. Do promote your business. Don't have a tweet that's so long it takes more than 3 utterances to get the message out. You know, all these rules, and I thought it was absurd. And I ran into the co-founder of Twitter, Evan Williams, at a conference, and right when I was getting into this, and I laid this on him, like, what about all these rules? And he gave the greatest answer. He was like, oh my God, are there rules for the phone? Are there rules for sitting in a room and talking to someone? Of course not. It's just a channel. It can be whatever you want. It can be marketing, it can be news, it can be jokes, it can be conversation, whatever you want. It can be a support group. There are no rules. And so it is a time drain, like the internet is a time drain, like the telephone is a time drain, like television is a time drain. They're all just channels with the good and the bad. But it did take me some time to warm up to Twitter, and you're right.
Well, back in February of 2009, when you made the ego-massaging statement, there were 6 million members of Twitter. Now you alone have 1.2 million followers this morning, and one of them, I'm one of them, by the way.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yes, I love reading your tweets. And you have 6 times as many followers as President Obama had during the campaign.
No
what
pressure.
accounts for the staggering growth in popularity, and what accounts for the fact that you have more followers than almost anyone?
Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, the celebrities have enormous numbers in the millions. I think I cheated, actually. I agree that my tweets tend to be on the funny side, and on I try not to waste people's time. I try not to confuse people. I don't use a lot of symbols and shorthand, but that's only part of it. So my great uptick in followers, I think, has largely to do with a lucky break I got, which is when you sign up for a Twitter account, so far you're following nobody. Right? There's all these great, interesting people out there, but you're not seeing any of their remarks. You have to say, I want you, and I want you. So for the last year, Twitter Inc., when you sign up, shows you a list of people they consider funny and interesting, and says, here's a starter set. Do you want to follow these people for now, so that at least you'll see something?
A circle of friends.
A circle of interesting people. And I was lucky enough to have my name on that list of suggestions. So I actually think that much of this swell in followership came from that quirk of luck.
So tell us a little more about, as a true penitent, about your conversion to Twitter. I think it started in January when you were in Las Vegas, didn't it?
It did. Well, actually, before that, I was a judge on a panel giving grants, technology grants. And there was one moment when there were 12 judges, and there was a proposal to build a van that creates eyeglasses on the spot for poor countries in Africa. It's going to go from village to village. And one of the judges said, hasn't this been done before? And everyone looked at each other blankly. And finally, this guy next to me, a Harvard professor, goes, just a second. He opens his laptop, and then in literally 10 seconds, he goes, yeah, UNICEF, 2001, Bausch and Lomb, 1999. He got the answer. I'm like, how did you do that? Because it wasn't email, it wasn't the web, I don't know what it was. It was Twitter. It was real-time, two-way, targeted to this guy's circle of colleagues. And it blew my mind. I mean, that was a use for Twitter that had not even occurred to me, crowdsourcing in real time. So that's when the Las Vegas thing happened. At my next talk, I decided to try that experiment in front of an audience. And I said, watch this. I have the hiccups, who's got a great cure? Now watch, everybody. And in 10 seconds, on the big screen, up started rolling these, not just hiccup cures like drink water, blah, 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 but also these hilarious responses like, simple, hold your breath until Windows 7 comes out. Or I take large sips of bourbon. It doesn't stop the hiccups, but I stop caring. I mean, it's like witty things. And the audience was dying laughing, and I was dying laughing. And it occurred to me at that point, what I realized later, which is the demographics of Twitter, it's a totally different crowd than the rest of the internet. It is not the morons on YouTube. It is not the the younger gang on Facebook. Have you ever seen the YouTube comments like, "That's so gay"? Well, you're a tard. It's like, what is it with you people? But on Twitter, it's totally different. We now know that it's an average age 35, average income $75,000. This is a totally witty, literate, much more classy, in my opinion, crowd.
Preponderantly college graduates.
Yep, absolutely. And the teenagers don't do Twitter. They're like, that's for old people. And I'm like, fine, leave it for us. But anyway, so I came home from that Las Vegas experiment about the hiccups, and I told my wife, batting an eye, she goes, you know what you should do? You should ask a question of your followers like that every night for like a couple months, and then publish the best results in a book.
Well, before we get to the book, first place, there's a reply feature on Twitter, isn't there?
Yep.
So if you tweet your whole community, and then people can reply to you.
Yeah, well, that was one of my frustrations. So if I pose a question to my followers, and they shoot me back these really clever, funny answers, I'm the only one who sees them, in general. So it was very frustrating to me that all these clever hiccup answers came back, and no one else knew it but me and the people seeing it in the audience. So that was another thing that made me think about the book idea, which I know we'll get to. But it was just frustrating to me that there's all this wit and only one guy seeing it.
But there's also a forward feature, isn't there? A retweet feature, so that you can take these answers and then send them to other people.
So that's what I began to do. So I began to take these funny things and I would retweet them or pass them along, rebroadcast them, in other words, with the original person's name attached, of course. Yep. Credit is very big on Twitter.
Credit is big on Twitter. Now, you didn't, in fact, have the hiccups when you sent this out, did
no,
you?
No,
And did you get any, and you finally admitted it, isn't that right?
Yeah, at the end of the test, I said, sorry, I don't really have hiccups. I just wanted to demonstrate Twitter. And yeah, there were a few disgruntled people. So now when I do those tests, I always say, okay, this is a Twitter demo. And then I'll ask.
So you got tweets back like, keep it up and you'll be the Pogue, the twittered wolf?
Exactly.
And there are some incivil people on Twitter. They got one that was pretty cheap.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, that's a little better than tard. But
yeah, exactly. Even when they're dumping on me, they're clever.
And not so sure I appreciate being your guinea pig.
Do you have any other questions, Jim?
I have some other questions. All right. Let's talk about the book, because the book is very interesting. Tell us about how the book came to be, and the book is filled with hilarious tweets. Yeah, none of which were written by you.
None of which were written by me, actually.
So tell about that.
So that's it. So for 3 months, I asked a question every night. I timed it at 11 o'clock, so I get the going to bedders on the East Coast and the home from workers on the West Coast. And there were questions about, what should the 11th commandment be? Make up an example of spam from the future. Tell about current events in the style of Dr. Seuss. Some life experiential, some just jokes. And oh my gosh, these people, all in all 25,000 responses. They would pour in. I'd ask the question, and then I'd just wait for the answers to roll back in like for the next hour, just laughing like a deranged person, because these people are so funny. So I'd say, make up the subject line of an email you really don't want to read. And so they're like, to my former sexual partners as required by law, or RE, what seems to have been your car, and on and on and on. And so, I don't.
I like best. What's the best vanity license plate you've seen or owned? Not cop on a Ford 5 Crown Victoria.
I know. I mean,
you can't make these things up.
You can't make these up. Another guy on the vanity license plate, he had a Honda Fit. and so his license plate said hissy. It's a hissy fit. The best one though is this one, make up a prequel for a famous movie. So there are things like Mr. Smith MapQuests Washington, Snakes in the Terminal, and my two favorites from the whole book. One is There Goes Private Ryan, I Hope He'll Be Okay. And then the best of all is We're Running Low on Mohicans. The prequel to The Last of the Mohicans. Yeah.
Now you credited, at least you gave the Twitter address of everyone that submitted a response that was published, isn't that right?
That's right. Not just credit. I said from the outset I would hand autograph a free book for each contributor.
How many contributors?
1,500.
And you signed your name 1,500 times?
Oh, not just my name. I wrote a little message for Damien. Thanks for your contribution, co-author! Exclamation point. David Pogue and the date. And it took 4 days. It was killer.
4 days of writer's cramp. No facsimile signature.
I wish I had one of those machines, but.
Now, have you read Gary Trudeau's satire on Twitter in his Doonesbury?
No.
Where he invents a member named Roland Headley. And Roland Headley is supposed to be an insider, a player, a game changer, a man of many talents. And he is constantly lampooning what he calls serious journo twists. Serious journo twits.
Yeah.
Just journo twits who go on Twitter and then say things to, I suppose, aggrandize themselves. Trudeau says, the technology obviously isn't inherently silly, it's just a tool. A lot of serious people are using Twitter towards serious ends, especially the geeks who put it on the map. But there are also vast numbers of users, including journalists, who are so smitten with the idea of a personal broadcasting system that the absence of meaningful content to broadcast doesn't seem to concern them. Do you agree with him?
Yep.
You do?
I am totally smitten with a personal broadcast system. One day, when I hit like 1.1 million followers, one of them pointed out, dude, your Twitter audience is now larger than your New York Times audience, and larger than your CNBC audience, and probably larger than your book audience. It's the single most read channel in my life, and it's totally off the books, unofficial, unedited. I mean, that's a giddy feeling. So I'm sure eventually I, like all these other journalists, will one day say something that gets his employer riled up, like you shouldn't be talking about that out of school. But it hasn't happened yet, and I found it very useful. Whether my tweets are lousy or not, as Trudeau implies these journalists are, I don't think that's valid, because you know what? If somebody sends you lousy tweets, you turn them off. It's one click. So the idea is you self-select whose stuff you're getting, and that's the beauty of it.
Well, he has, in the Lampoon, he has David Gregory getting up in the morning and saying, I really need extra mouthwash and things of that. Why tweet about this?
Right.
And I think that's his point, but he means it half in earnest, half in jest. I mean, he may be a member of Twitter himself. So,
right. I mean,
so who knows? It's a lot of, it certainly has a lot of content for his cartoon.
He's making the same, I don't care what you had for lunch joke. He's saying, yes, there's banal stuff. Well, yeah, there's banal stuff everywhere. Online, everywhere you look. But I mean, I try not to talk about what I'm doing unless it's really cool, unless I'm on some really interesting TV shoot on a naval aircraft carrier or a skyscraper or something. Just keep it funny and interesting. And that, by the way, that's true for businesses. Businesses are getting into Twitter very fruitfully. For one thing, at search.twitter.com, you can type in a company name, a product name, your name, and see what people are saying about you. It's like the ability to eavesdrop on 30 million people's private conversations. It's incredible. So companies are doing this and then finding out that they're being complained about by customers, Southwest Airlines or Carnival Cruise Lines or Dell, and then they're able to respond to these people before they turn into a PR nightmare.
You're about to land on an aircraft carrier as part of an NPR series you're doing, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's a PBS Nova miniseries. Yeah. It's going to air in November of 2010. It's 4 hours, all about materials science, which is a brand of science that is completely ignored, but there is some amazing, wicked, cool, cutting-edge stuff going on. You know, nanofiber, carbon nanotubes, and anyway, so we're going on to the aircraft carrier to talk about that steel cable that catches the planes on the hook when it lands.
It better.
Yeah, it better, because I'm going to be in the plane. Yeah, and the fatiguing properties of steel.
There's a dark side of Twitter as well, isn't there? I mean, it was used in the Iran Revolution and then to spread disinformation. It was used by the revolutionaries, the Green Movement, to get their message across among their followers. It's been was used in the Mumbai attacks, both by terrorists and by
the victims,
where it was very useful. I suppose if there were another Katrina situation, people might tweet about the best road out of the city. So it has myriad applications beyond just joking around or social networking.
That's true. People are using it for business, for news, for expression. Absolutely. People are exchanging recipes. Yeah. Really short ones, but they're out there.
Or you could link to recipes that so it could be longer. In sports, the NFL has banned the use of Twitters by players because they don't want them twittering out of the locker room or about the game plan for the game.
Yeah, hasn't the military also banned?
Yeah, military's banned it, and then judges become very irritated when jurors tweet their wives in the course of deliberations. You know, honey, I'll be home in an hour. We're getting near a guilty verdict, and
that's right.
So they caution all jurors not to use Twitter and not to read anything on the internet quite beyond anything to do with the case.
That's right. Pretty amazing for a company that has absolutely no revenue and has no apparent plans to make any. I mean, nothing's funding Twitter except for venture capital, and they don't make a penny.
What do you think is the future of Twitter? Do you think it's a fad, or do you think it's going to last for a while?
I don't think it's a fad. My observation about consumer technology is stuff doesn't replace stuff, but stuff just adds on, right? So, you know, television came out and everyone said, oh, that's the end of radio. No, it wasn't. It just added on and so on. So Twitter will become another channel, like email, like blogs, like Facebook, that will further splinter the audience, make more micro channels. But yeah, I think it or its successors are for sure here to stay because it serves a real purpose that is not served by the existing channels.
It's not revenue generating at the moment, is it? It hasn't made a dime.
No.
And yet they value it at billions of dollars, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is worth something, but
it's worth something, but
not in money.
Not in money. How do you monetize it? I mean, do you think there'll be advertising? Do you think they'll figure out some way that they can charge people for subscribing?
Well, everybody has asked Biz Stone and Evan Williams, the founders, this. And they don't want to do advertising because they know that would ruin what's great about Twitter. They don't want to be gross about it, you know, crass about it, mercenary about it. They don't want to start charging for it, for example. So I think that's all right. I think they're being really, really careful and trying to think of something clever. But they're not saying anything about how they're going to make money. Other people are proposing all kinds of suggestions. For example, have premium accounts by businesses that lets them slice and dice the Twitter stream into useful ways. But so far, nobody knows.
No one knows exactly where it's going economically.
Right. And, you know, there are plenty of things that never do come up with a revenue stream that just get bought by Google. And Google runs them for free forever, you know.
Like YouTube.
YouTube, exactly. Or, you know, Yahoo bought Flickr. You know, Flickr doesn't really generate any money. So, but as long as it's part of a huge, well-heeled corporate parent, I think they'll be all right.
You like to write song parodies of various platforms in the digital age, such as iPhone and others. Have you done anything about Twitter?
I haven't done one on Twitter, but I really should. That's got to be next.
So what's your latest parody?
Well, I did something about apps, the craze over the App Store. Do you still have that? keyboard in your
I think it would take
closet?
us time to find it, but can you recite it?
You want
or
me
do
to sing
have
it
on your
a
computer?
cappella?
Sing it a cappella. I'll give you a C.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll edit out this pause. So I did one that is a parody of the Britney Spears song "Oops, I Did It Again," but it's "Apps, I Did Again." So it's I don't remember how long I spent in iTunes, lost in the store. Oh baby, it seemed harmless enough. Everyone's just imagining the background accompaniment. But my problem now is more serious. I refill all my home screens once a week. How pathetic is that? Oh baby, baby, apps, I did it again. I filled up my phone with crud from the store. Oh baby, baby. Anyway, you get the idea.
I get the idea.
Yeah.
I think we have to wrap up, but so I have a question for you.
Yes.
David Pogue, with apologies to Cole Porter, is Twitter an earthquake or merely a shock in the digital age?
It's a low rumble that will go on for a long time.
That's wonderful. This has been wonderful. Thank you for coming by, David Pogue. And thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more about the digital age. For the digital age, I'm Jim Zirin. Good night and all the best.
Love flew in through my window. I was so happy then. But after love had stayed a little while, love flew out again. What is this thing called love? This funny thing called love. Just who can solve its mystery? Why should it make a